So if we come down to Marion.
You said about not knowing and not needing to know when you go through the actual release of pain and the terror comes through. Seeking the answers from your parents about their life and your life and previous generations, is that just really seeking a increase in desire to find out the soul truth?
No, remember I said to you that if you've gone through the accepting my façade phase, it's highly likely that your parents are not going to talk to you.
If you did that before, they'd have refused to talk to you.
Well, that means that you haven't been through the accepting my façade phase. And so what I'm suggesting to you is you go through accepting my façade phase, they stop talking to you. So how are you then going to get their help to identify the pain?
Well, if you know that your dad went through the World War I, born in June, the war started in Eastbourne, and that would give you an idea?
No, knowing something intellectually does nothing for you.
Okay.
Nothing.
Yep. Thank you.
Does that make sense? And this is what we need to remember is that it's very interesting because I see many of you doing this. You sat down, have a good chat with your parents about whatever, and I'm saying if you're sitting down having a good chat with your parents about anything, you probably haven't accepted your façade yet. And if you haven't accepted your façade yet, then how can you be down here working through stuff here? You can't. So many of you think you can, but you can't. It's a process that you're going to go through. And when you're at the stage of releasing your pain, you have already gone through accepting your façade, deconstructing your façade. Now, if you've accepted your façade and deconstructed your façade, by this stage, it's highly likely, unless your parents are also on the path and also sincerely working through their emotions, it's highly likely they won't be speaking to you anymore. And so what I'm suggesting to you is if you are speaking to them, talking about stuff, then it means you haven't accepted your façade yet, and you'd be better off going back to that, right? And this is why I wanted to talk to you later about recognising where you're at, because for many of you, you're trying to jump ahead here, jump down to here. You're even having conversations with people who have contributed to your pain. And if you're having what I would classify as friendly conversations with people who have contributed to your pain, then it means that they have a feeling of complete safety discussing those issues with you, which means you're not confronted your façade yet, right? So, and I'm not saying that you will be encouraging the outbursts on their behalf or anything, but there are times when you will feel quite angry with them, and there's times when and eventually they will get so angry with you that they won't even want to speak to you. I have not known anybody to go through these things except in the higher spheres of the spirit world where the parents have already been gone through this or going through the same issues. There has been no other circumstance that I've seen where there hasn't been disagreement between families. And that's why in the first century I said to people, you know, there will be there'll be enemies in your own household, enemies towards you doing this process, because they want to be enemies, and they will be enemies in your own household because they don't want to go through the process that you're going through. It's quite obvious. And so, yes, if you, what I'm suggesting to you, Marion, quite strongly is that if you're speaking with your parents about things, firstly, it's not going to help you feel your emotion. Secondly, it's highly likely they won't assist you to feel your emotion because they're going to disagree with you feeling their emotion. The only emotion that they will agree with you feeling is the emotions that they also have that they agree with feeling. And that's not very many. There's not very many, and very few of those emotions have actually created your façade, because they are the emotions that you're in agreement with your family with. Now, either you're in agreement because you are in a façade, or both of you are in agreement and you both believe the wrong thing. Either one is not going to help you process something from God's perspective emotionally, right? So, yeah, very important to understand that, and this is where I see the majority of you are finding it difficult to measure where you're at, and you think that actually finding things out from your family is going to benefit you in this process. But the reality is my family has opposed every new truth that I've stated about the family. right? And I'm talking about truths that they 20 years later have accepted. Like years and years ago, there was an issue with my brother and my mother, and they processed, my mother had sex out of marriage, and my brother is my half-brother. Now my parents refused to tell my brother. I knew it had happened. My parents refused to tell all of the children. It was a family secret. And as soon as I raised the issue, everybody in the family, including my brother, hated me about raising the issue. And for the next 20 years, they resisted dealing with the issue, and it's only just recently they even got a blood test to see whether it's true. Right? And it turned out to be true. Of course. Right? But of course they didn't tell me that they got a blood test. Right? So because it's too confronting to have to admit that these things are true, you see. And this is the thing, is that your family will oppose most of what you attempt to do. And you need to be aware of that. And so the only time they won't is if they are actually wanting to do the same thing themselves. They want to get closer to God themselves. That's the only time they won't. And there's not many of those, is there? It's like usually there's one in a family or a couple in the family that start off the process, and the rest of the family oppose them until such a time as those people get to a stage where they're really, really happy, and then the rest of the family go, why are you happy? And you say, first thing you'll probably feel like saying to him is, it's not because of you or any help you gave me. Because it certainly probably won't be. Yep.